Okay, so we are on to a new Mishnah after a month on the first one. We're up to Pirkei Avos Daled Beis, and I think I would like to spend 2 weeks on this one, not because it is gonna be difficult, and not because it is going to be segmented like our last one, but because I think there's a lot here. I mean, there's a lot in every Mishnah, but there's like a lot here that I'm interested in. Okay, that a lot of this has to do with our philosophy of mitzvos and how we relate to mitzvos. And so the plan for tonight is to do Rabbeinu Yonah and the Meiri, and then we'll see what we end up doing next week. But I would like to spend 2 weeks on this. So if we have any unfinished business, then we'll do that next time. Okay. So Ben Azai Omer, Ben Azai says, "Heavy rots lemitzvah kala kavachamura." Uboreach min ha'avera. If anyone wants to volunteer to translate, they can. Usually, that's Ayala or Tamar, but they're not here right now. So if anyone wants to, then they can. If not, then I'll do it. But I always like to give people the opportunity. I don't know who is.
I guess you should run to a light mitzvah, like a strict
Okay,
mitzvah.
good. Okay, good. You should run to a light mitzvah, like a strict mitzvah. Actually, I'm going to use a slightly broader word. We'll talk about how difficult these are to translate in a second. Severe mitzvah. Yeah, uboreach min avera.
And run away from sin.
Yeah, and run away from transgression. I also just not a pet peeve of mine, but a insistence on a specific translation. I like translating Aveirah as transgression, chet as sin, and avon as iniquity. And the reason why is because not that this is true in every case, but Aveirah means transgression, which refers to a violation of a law, whereas chet is much more abstract and could be used for an imperfection or a mistake. Could also be used for a violation of law. And then avon is like the broadest because avon just means like an imperfection, or an iniquity. So that's why I'm going to translate it as transgression. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead because the word transgression is too long to type. I'm going to go ahead and say Aveirah, and then I'll just use Aveirah from now on. Okay. Mitzvah Goreres mitzvah va'avera Goreres avera.
Is it because a mitzvah causes a mitzvah and a Aveirah causes an Aveirah? I don't know if
Okay, yeah. So
Goreres is the right
yeah.
term, is
So
the
I
right
also
definition, but
I looked up the definition, but I want to look it up. Sorry, I know the definition, but I want to look it up. First of all, I want to see if it is a oh, am I not sharing the screen? Oh no, I am. Okay, good. I want to look it up in see if it is even a biblical Hebrew word. I don't think it is. I think it's Mishnaic Hebrew. So if we don't find it here, uh Migoraros. I don't think that is the word that we're looking for, but I will click on it and just see what happens. Migoraros. Oh yeah, it does mean to drag. Okay, that's how I was going to translate it. To drag. Let's just look at the early let's look at the Radak. No, that's Gar. Okay, fine. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, there's another dictionary which I don't usually use because I don't usually go on Svaria. But I do go on there for this dictionary, the Klein dictionary. The Klein dictionary has first of all, it's searchable by typing, and it also has rabbinic Hebrew. So if you look up Goreres, let's see what it says. Tugboat. Okay. Gorer, the trailer or tugger. Okay, fine. So to drag. Okay. So a mitzvah drags a mitzvah, and an avera drags an avera. Sheschar mitzvah mitzvah uschar avera avera. How do you translate that?
the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward for an Aveirah is an Aveirah.
Yep. For the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward of an avera is an avera. Okay. So first thing I want to do is for those who are not aware of our usual Pirkei Avos proceedings, this is the standard text, which is found in many Sidurim, but there is the most authoritative version of the Mishnah that we know of, which is the Kaufman manuscript. Okay, and sometimes the changes are drastic, sometimes they're very minor. Here, they're very minor. Ben Azai Omer. Okay, so it spells Ben Azai differently. Okay, fine. Heavy rocks the mitzvah kala uborech min Aveirah. So it deletes, or it doesn't delete. It doesn't have like a severe mitzvah. And the rest of it is exactly the same. Okay. The only reason I'm showing it to you is because this is the version that the Rabbeinu Yonah has, and it's also the version that the Rambam has. So I don't know if it makes a difference. I just wanted to point it out. The Meiri does have our version. Okay. What are the questions and problems? And there are going to be a lot more than seems at first glance. Yeah, Alex.
I mean, for one, what exactly do they mean by like light and severe mitzvahs?
Okay.
Like, are they grading that?
Right. So what is the meaning of light and severe mitzvos in this context? And I wanted to just note here, I kind of mentioned this when Lauren was translating. So kal literally means light. Chamur usually, like Lauren said, means strict. But like it is kal can also mean easy. Chamur can also mean like harsh, So I wanted to, that's why I'm trying to keep it as literal as possible here. Okay, Charlotte.
I think I have two questions. The first
Sure.
one is, what do you mean by a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah?
Right. So what does it mean that a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah? Okay.
Okay, and then the second one, if it's okay to say a second one.
Sure.
Isn't it obvious that a reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah and the reward of an Aveirah is an Aveirah?
Okay, I don't think it's obvious. In fact, I think it's problematic. What is there anything particular that, I mean, I know this is kind of a trick question and a hard question to answer. If you think it's obvious, then you might not be able to answer the question, why do you think it's obvious? But did you have something in mind that, like, I would think that a reward for mitzvah is something other than a mitzvah. That's what most rewards are, right? Most rewards are things other than the thing itself.
I don't know. It bothers me, the last part. I don't like it.
Okay, all right. Maybe
I don't know. I guess I'll leave it at leave it with just one question then.
Okay, sure. So I think we're gonna have other questions on that clause, and maybe when you see our perspective, I'm kind of assuming other people are gonna think like me, but we'll see. Then you'll see why this is a bothersome statement to me. Yeah, Lauren.
I'm kind of troubled how the last statement relates to the first two, because the first two make sense. Running away from, you should run towards the mitzvah because it'll bring you to another mitzvah. But the last one with the reward, it kind of seems like it's coming out of nowhere.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, I think that I was thinking about the best way to ask this question. All right, the problematic connector words here are the shins. Okay, or the becauses. Okay, so so the way I'm going to ask this question is, how do each of these three clauses relate to each other? Okay, so what would you say the I can think, I can think of three possibilities for just syntactically, just in terms of like reading, how these three clauses relate to one another. Okay, anyone want to say one way to, like, to read it?
1 second. Give me a minute.
Yeah, Lauren?
Well, I think for the first two, it's like you should run towards doing a light mitzvah because, like it's saying, like a mitzvah drags a mitzvah, then it'll lead you to doing more mitzvahs. And the Aveirah also, if you run away from the Aveirah, if you don't run away from the Aveirah, then you'll be dragged into doing more Aveirahs. So it's kind of like the reason.
Okay, so that's explaining the second clause is a reason for the first clause.
First, right. The third, I don't know.
Okay.
It
Yeah, I'm
seems,
looking for ways to have all three of them. Yeah, Charlotte?
I mean, similarly to what you just said, it seems like the first two are opposites of one another. And
Okay.
then the third is like a close of what the two opposites are, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Like, I don't know. Never mind. Okay.
I'll show you what I'm thinking, and then Lauren. By the way, just since Ayala just came, Ayala, the only thing you've missed is what's on the screen right now. Okay. Yeah,
Awesome,
Lauren?
thank you.
Yeah, I think now I see how the last clause could also be a reason for the second clause, because
Okay.
it's saying like you'll get more and more reward. Like the mitzvah is the reward for the mitzvah in the sense that it's kind of explaining how a mitzvah drags along another mitzvah,
Okay.
or
Okay.
how the Aveirah drags along another Aveirah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So one way to say it. So here's how I'm conceiving of it right now, and maybe there's more. Maybe that we could say this better. So one way is that the dragging clause is an explanation for the running clause, and the reward clause is an explanation for the dragging clause. Okay. So in other words, run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from an Aveirah. Why should I do that? Because a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah. Well, why does that matter? Because the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah and the reward for an Aveirah is an Aveirah. Okay, that's one way to read it. Okay. Another way to read it is that oh, hold on. I just lost it now. Okay, maybe I only have two. I had three earlier. Okay, the other way to read it is the dragging clause and the reward clause are two separate explanations for the running clause. Okay. Now this is a little bit difficult, but the way you would read it then is you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from the Aveirah, A, because mitzvah drags a mitzvah and Aveirah drags an Aveirah, and B, because the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah and the reward of an Aveirah is an Aveirah. The difficulty with it is that you would expect it to say and, okay, not just another word because, okay. The third way, I know the third way. The third way to read it, okay, and this is going to be a little bit abstract, is the dragging clause is an explanation for the running clause. But the reward clause is the reason for, the dragging clause is an explanation for the mechanics of the running clause, but the reward clause is the reason for the running clause. Okay, so let me actually just type all these out just because I think this is all too abstract. I thought it would make it simpler, but it didn't. Okay, so the first way to say it is you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from an Aveirah. Okay, because a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah. And the reason for that is because the reward for a mitzvah, etc. Okay, that's the first way. The second way is I'm just going to copy and paste because I'm lazy. Second way is you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from an Aveirah. And the implication is for two reasons. Okay, A, because a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah. And B, because the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah and the reward for an Aveirah is an Aveirah. The third way to read it is you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from an Aveirah. Okay. Because how would I say this? Because since a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah, and you want this didn't go out as well as I thought. I was saying you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah and run away from an Aveirah because mitzvah. Let's do it in parentheses. Since a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah, okay, because so in other words, the what do you call it? The real reason you should that you should run is because of the reward. But the Goreres thing is just like the mechanics. That's just like how it comes about. Okay. Now you might argue I'm complicating the whole thing, but I do think these are three reasons, three ways to do it. Okay, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay, let me just make this smaller so we can see more questions. Okay, what are the other questions on the Mishnah? Yeah, Ayala?
I'm not sure if this was included when discussing question 1, but why does it differentiate light and versus severe mitzvah, but not Aveirah? Like Aveirah just lumps together.
Okay, that's a good question. Why doesn't it distinguish? That's not how you write the word. Differentiate between light and severe for Aveirah. Okay, only for mitzvah. Now, I am going to just give a little foreshadowing here, which I think you could still have this question, but the Meiri, which we're going to see later on, says that's implied, that you should run to a mitzvah kala like a chamura, and you should run away from an avera kala like a chamura. Okay, but I think the simple reading is the way you're saying it. Okay, and yeah, and according to the Kaufman, this is one thing you missed, Ayala, which is according to the Kaufman manuscript, it doesn't say like a strict one, so it doesn't really matter so much. But yeah, okay, Charlotte.
It doesn't say what the Aveirah would be for an Aveirah. Like, what's the consequence for an Aveirah?
Well, it says it in the same way as it does for the mitzvah, right? It says that a mitzvah drags a mitzvah, and an Aveirah drags an Aveirah, and a reward for mitzvah is mitzvah, and the reward for an Aveirah is an Aveirah.
I'm saying it only talks about a reward.
Okay. So the question is, so I think there's a definition question which might precede that, which is, and actually I'll flesh out this question in a second as well, which is, what is the meaning of sachar here? Okay. So I'm going to ask a question from a different mishnah, and the only reason I'm really bringing it up is because Rabbeinu Yonah brings it up. But there is another mitzvah. Well, let's see how well you know your Pirkei Avos. Anyone know the other mishnah that sounds very similar to this one? And I'm not asking you to cite
mitzvah. Is it like skar mitzvah?
That's this one.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking of the song.
Oh, okay. It turns out that they made a lot of these into a song, which is good. Because if you're gonna make stuff into songs for kids, it should be this. It shouldn't be God is here, God is there, God is really everywhere. I just had to disabuse my high schoolers of that notion right before this year. Okay. So the mishnah I'm talking about is the first mishnah in chapter 2. Rebbe Omer, and this is a multi-clause mishnah, but he says, "Ve'hevi zahir b'mitzvah kala kavachamura." You should be careful with the light mitzvah like a severe one. She'enata yodea matan scharan shel mitzvos, because you don't know the reward distribution for mitzvos. Ve'hevi machashev hefsed mitzvah keneged schara uschar aveira keneged hefseda. You should calculate the loss of a mitzvah against its reward and the reward of an aveira against its loss. Now, I'm bringing this in for 2 reasons. Excuse me. One is just to show you that it also has 3 reasons. One is to show you that it also uses the categorization of a mitzvah kala kavachamura. Second is to show you that it uses a different verb injunction, right? Of you should be careful, not you should run. But then the third thing is, I think this is like what Charlotte was like responding to. This makes sense, right? Calculate the loss of a mitzvah and a reward, and then the loss of an aveira and the reward. Then you got like there's pros and cons, But here in ours, it just talks about the reward for mitzvos and the reward for aveiros. So that's weird, right? So what's the meaning of schar here? And specifically, why focus on the reward of an aveira, hold on a second here, of an aveira, and as opposed to its punishment or loss. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Lauren.
You mean me?
I'm sorry, not Lauren. That was from before. Alex. Yeah.
That's no problem. I wanted to know with the question of in the first clause, it talks about light mitzvahs versus severe mitzvahs, but then later when it talks about a mitzvah dragging a mitzvah, they don't really use the same language of light or severe. So I was curious if there was like, is it not necessary to know if there's a light or severe mitzvah that's dragging another, or is there like an intuitive, like, oh, obviously one kind of mitzvah would drag the other?
Yeah. So I think the full answer to your question is going to come from answering the question of how the clauses relate to each other. But I do think that it is implying what you're saying, which is that because a light mitzvah can drag you to because a light mitzvah can drag you to a severe mitzvah, and I guess a light aveiros can drag you to a severe aveiros, then therefore, like, no, sorry. The explanation it's giving is presupposing that you can go from a light to a strict one. So I think, but the question remains, how does that work, right? But yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is by explaining the dragging phenomenon and how the clauses interact, then we'll answer your question. Yeah, Lauren?
I guess there might be a few questions in this. So, like, what does a light mitzvah mean? Like a more severe mitzvah mean? And why would you not run, I guess, to a light mitzvah?
So the first question is we have as our first question, what's the meaning of light and severe mitzvahs?
Oh, right. Okay.
But then the question you're asking is, what is the hava amina? Okay, which means hava amina, which means what would I have thought without this mishnah? Okay, so I think that there are, so you can ask the way Lauren did, which is, why would I have not run to the mitzvah? But I think there's actually two possible hava aminas. Okay, one hava amina is what Lauren is saying, is the hava amina that actually no, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna say. What are the two possible hava aminas? Like, what the Ben Azai is telling the audience of this mishnah, hey man, you need to run to the mitzvah. So what was the person thinking?
Well, maybe, I don't know. I think maybe I'm still stuck on this light and severe, because I would think you should run to all mitzvahs, not just light or severe.
Okay.
I was kind of wondering, why are we assuming that there's a difference in types of mitzvot?
Okay.
That's also another.
Okay, so presupposing that, I think you have there's really three possibilities now. Okay, so one possibility is that that I should run to well, this is telling us you should run to all mitzvos equally, right? So it's talking to someone who thinks that I should run to strict mitzvos more than light mitzvos, or vice versa. And this is telling you, kamash malan, right? This is telling you you should run to them equally. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's another possibility about why a person would need to hear this? Like, what might they be thinking? So the other possibility,
they don't have to run at all.
Yeah,
they can just take their time.
That I should walk to mitzvos. Okay, and then kamash malan, no, you should run. Okay, and then the other one, so I guess I should say is to light mitzvos. Okay, and then the other possibility is, which I think is the least likely because this is Pirkei Avos, is that I shouldn't even walk to light mitzvos. Okay, and then kamash malan, not only should you walk, but you should run. Okay, so the question is, like, what attitude was here that this mishnah is modifying? And it's going to be one of these three, I think. Okay, Alex.
The classic question of, like, who's the audience here?
Yes, classic. Okay, who is the audience of this mishnah, right? So for those not familiar with the working theory we have, is that Pirkei Avos, the primary audience of Pirkei Avos is for the chassid, which is the extra pious person, the person who is a tzaddik and trying to go beyond that. And then secondarily, it's for other people, for like normal people. But we've seen that there's certain mishnayos that are specifically directed towards people who are like a chassid in training, is what we call them. And then certain mitzvot, and like it would be bad if the normal person did it. And then other mitzvos, mishnayos are really for everyone, you know? So let's say, for example, like last week, we had both. Or not last week, last mishnah, we had both. We had, who is rich? Someone who's happy with their portion. So we had Mefarshim who said that that's really something that we should all intend to embody. And then we had the Sforno last week who said, no, the mishnah is specifically for people who are in a position of influence and they're trying to model certain perfections for people, So who's the audience of this mishnah? is it for a chassid in training or for even regular people? Okay, Ayala.
So on the last clause, how does this reward work? What type of reward is it? Like, is it a hashgachic reward or is it like cause and effect?
Okay,
And
good.
how?
Okay, so so practically speaking, how does this reward come about? Okay. Yeah. Okay, is it natural, hashgachic, other? Okay. Yeah, that we have to answer. Yeah, Charlotte?
My question is not about in relation to the Mishnah exactly. You mentioned that your assumption is that Pirkei Avos is written for the chassid, and because I'm
Yeah.
a late start to the class, I don't know like where that came from. So do you
Yeah,
mind?
so it comes from a Gemara, which I can find for you later. Is actually, unless I know where it is now.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I can find it later. Haiman debaila mehave chasida likai mili de avos, which means if someone wants to become a chassid, he should fulfill the principles of Pirkei Avos. And so that is the statement in Chazal that most lends itself to that. And then you have the Rambam in his I forgot it. It's okay. He has an introduction to Pirkei Avos called Shmona Prakim, and he has an introduction to Shmona Prakim, and then he also has an introduction to the introduction. Okay, so I don't remember which introduction it's in, but in one of them he says, I think it's in his introduction to the Mishnah where he talks about the role of all the Mishnayos and Avos, and he says that the reason why Pirkei Avos is in, let me just show you in the Seder of the Mishnah, then Pirkei Avos. Oh, sorry, it's not going to be in Shas. Hold on. So you have Nezikin, which is about damages and court laws. You have all the Bavas, which are about damages. Then you have Sanhedrin, which is for the court. Makos, which is their punishments. Shavuos, which is about oaths. I think because the witnesses have to take the oath. Then witnesses. Then Avodah Zarah. Okay, I forgot why Avodah Zarah is in there. And then Avos, and then Horios. Horios is about certain things in Psak. So the question that the Rambam wants to answer is, what is Avos, which is about ethics, doing here in this thing about courts? So he says that everyone needs ethics, but he says that judges need ethics more than everyone. Judges and like leaders, because they influence the people. So if they don't have correct midos, if you don't have good midos, it's just going to harm you and the people around you. But if the judges don't have good midos, it's going to harm everybody. And it's going to harm the whole society. And the proof of that is we actually have a bracha in Shemona Esrei asking for the restoration of righteous judges. So that's where he says that the primary audience of Pirkei Avos is the judges themselves, and secondarily it's for other people. And then Sforno, who I don't know his theory of Avos as well, I think he holds that the first chapters in Pirkei Avos are for judges, and then we read a theory that Sforno had for the fourth chapter last time. Sforno says that the fourth chapter, which we started last time, is it's to help a person acquire meticulousness or caution with halacha, and then alacrity. So I don't know if he's saying that for high level people or like for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Did you have another? No, okay. All right, Alex.
I know we already asked the question if there is a distinction between a light or severe Aveirah, like, and why it wouldn't be mentioned. But I'm curious if the construct of a light and severe mitzvah would be on the same spectrum as Aveirahs, like on opposite sides, or if they're different constructs for the purpose of this.
Okay, good question. I'll tack that onto 3. So why doesn't it differentiate between light and severe for Aveirah only for mitzvah? So does this distinction exist for Aveirah? And if so, like, is it the same like spectrum / dichotomy? That's actually another question. Is it a spectrum or a dichotomy? Because those are two different things. Or does it not exist? Okay, so let me add this here. Is it a spectrum or a dichotomy? Also, is it objective or subjective? Okay, meaning it might just be a mitzvah that's called to you, Okay, I think there is only one more major question that we did not ask. Okay, so I think the only major question we didn't ask is, practically speaking, what does it mean to run and run away? Okay. Like, I don't think this is literal, that like, it's mutter to run on Shabbos if you're running to a mitzvah, but I don't think this is talking about like you should like actually like work up a sweat, So what does it mean to run? Like, what does that entail? Okay, yeah, Charlotte.
I actually don't know if we covered this. I'm so sorry if we did. This is like a lot for me to
That's okay. Yeah.
heavy, but it seems like there's two ends of the spectrum for a mitzvah,
Yeah.
light, severe, and then one end, one road for an Aveirah only. It doesn't mention a light Aveirah and a larger Aveirah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think we covered that in 4.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna actually paste all this into the chat now, okay? And then grumble about how it messes up the formatting.
Sorry about that. Okay.
No, no, you don't have to apologize. Yep, grumble, and mess up the formatting, underline everything. Okay, and then let me paste all the questions, and this is gonna mess things up even more.
I have to say, you're the only one I know who has this problem because I take
Really?
classes on Zoom and this has never come up with professors.
That's so funny. Do they use formatting? Oh, look, it's even worse. Oh, you can't even see it. Look at this. It messed up the, oh no, it didn't mess up the Hebrew. Never mind. Okay, it messed it up when I put it there. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm blessed. Hashtag blessed. Okay. Oh, see, question 6 is too long. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just say how the clauses relate to each other. Put that in the chat and you could work it all out later. Okay, and then I'm just gonna get the last 2 questions. 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's actually just start off with the light and severe mitzvos, okay? Because I think we need to know what we're talking about here. Okay. So we're even before we go to the Mefarshim, because I think this is like pre-Mefarshim here. Okay. So this is, what was this, question number 3. Okay, right? So question 3. Oh, hold on, what am I doing here? Question 3 is what is the meaning of light and severe mitzvos? So what would you say? Any intuitive approaches, any answers? Because I can think of 3 possibilities. Yeah, Alex.
Potentially light being like easy to like observe or commit or whatever, and severe being like harder to, keep.
Okay, good. So light is easy to do, and severe is difficult to do. Okay, and according to this, it would be a spectrum, right? And it would not necessarily be objective. Okay, good. Yeah, Lauren?
Maybe like in terms of punishment, if you don't do it, like eating korban pesach, if you don't do it, you get curries.
Yeah. Okay, good. So this, I'm putting this as answer number 3 because I think answer number 2 is closer to this. So answer number 3 is that these are objective categorizations. Okay, hold on a second. This is subjective. Okay. This is objective. Yeah, I'm gonna actually call on Alex before I go to elaborate on Lauren's, because I have to go to the Rambam for that. Yeah, Alex.
The option 2 potentially being the reward being light or severe, like olam haba, or just like, I don't know, parnasa or something.
Sorry, I just totally blanked out because I was thinking about my own answer. Say again.
So fair. I said potentially light or severe being like the reward you get for doing this mitzvah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Now I'm confused because I don't know whether I should put that in answer 3 or not. I'm gonna actually have 3A and 3B. Okay. So it is objective. So light equals mitzvos with like okay, I know why Okay, actually, all right. Not that you have to think about this, Alex, but that other mishnah I quoted does say that you should be careful with a light mitzvah like a severe one, because we don't know the rewards for mitzvos. Which, if you're going to assume that Ben Azai and Rebbe agree with each other, then it seems like he can't mean that light and strict is in terms of the reward. Do you see what I'm saying? Like logically, like how I'm getting that?
Very fair point.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Yeah. Though if you just had ours, then I think you could work it out. But so Lauren's is objective mitzvos that are that don't have a severe penalty for not observing them. Okay, and then severe equals heavy penalty. Okay, actually, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm writing this. I want to go to the Rambam. Okay, so the Rambam, this is the Rambam has a categorization like this with the same terms in Hilchos Tשובה. Okay, so he's talking about the Seir HaMishtaleach, which is the scapegoat on Yom HaKippurim, and he says, Seir HaMishtaleach, the scapegoat, Lefi Shehu Kapara L'Chol Yisrael, because it atones for all of Israel. Kohen Gadol, okay, that's not the halakha I wanted. Seir Mishlei Mechaper Al Kol Aveirah B'Torah. So the scapegoat atones for all the transgressions in the Torah. Hakalos v'hakamuros, the light ones and the strict ones, severe ones. Bein she'avar b'zad and bein she'avar b'shgaga, whether you transgress intentionally or unintentionally. Bein she'hodalo, bein she'lohodalo, whether it was known to him, whether it was not known to him. Hakol miskaber b'sir mishlech. Everything is atoned for with the scapegoat. V'hu she'asa tshuva. That's only if you did tshuva. V'im lo asa tshuva, but if you didn't do tshuva, in hasair mechaber lo ela al hakalos, then the scapegoat only atones for the light ones. Then he answers the question: Umahin hakalos, umahin hakamuros. What are the light and what are the severe ones? Hakamuros hein aveiros shechayavin alein misos beistin okares. So the severe ones are the aveiros that you're liable for capital for death at the hands of the court or for kares. Ushvu shav v'sheker, and also taking a vain or a false oath. Alpha she'ein ba kares hari hi min hakamuros. Even though you don't get kares, it's still one of these severe ones. Ushar mitzvos lo taseh, umitzvos taseh she'ein bahen kares, hein hakalos. And the other mitzvos aseh, the other mitzvos lo taseh and the mitzvos aseh that don't have kares, those are the light ones. So I'm just going to fill in the details here. So light equals, actually it's easier to say it the other way. Severe equals the transgressions that are liable for death or kares, okay, including the two mitzvos aseh that you're chayav kares for. Sorry, actually, no, sorry. Plus a false or a vain oath, okay. Plus, what are the two mitzvos aseh that you're chayav kares for?
The Korban Pesach and Mila.
Korban Pesach and Mila. Okay, and Bris Mila. Okay, because you're chayav kares for those. Okay, and then light would be everything else. Yeah. Okay. I think there is one more answer, which you could classify it as being like in the subjective thing, but I think it's actually different. Yeah, Ayala?
So I was gonna say, and I'm not sure if it's just stemming, like I was trying to think about what I would think of as a stringent mitzvah, and I think like let's say murdering, I feel like societally or like in general people think of as strict or not. I wasn't sure if it comes from that because of the severe punishment. Like that,
okay, yeah, that's funny because I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't sure if it came from the subjective thing. So I think like light and severe in people's perception. Okay. So I think that could stem from many things. For example, there are certain things that have a huge taboo, and the taboo is not necessarily commensurate with the with the Torah's penalty. Okay. For example, and this is it's not controversial because it's unanimous, but it sounds bad to say, you know, I think most Jews view intermarriage as being a worse Aveirah than nida, okay, than having, you know, relations with a nida. Now, in terms of the consequences to Klal Yisrael, then I think you could argue that intermarriage is worse. But halachically, intermarriage is not even chayav kares. Okay, it's chayav, excuse me, malchus. Okay, whiplashes. And Nita's chayav kares, so like it's a much more in terms of like the severity, like in the ranking system. The Rambam says that there are let me actually show you this. Hold on, I was just referencing this. I don't think this is formatted properly, but I wrote a post called "How to Tell the Severity of an Aveirah." Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, so the title is Shomer Negiah Chayav Misa, or How to Determine the Severity of Aveirah. And I call it this because in high school, when we did Q&As, there was always every year at least one student who would like ask some form of this question, and I'd have to explain to them, the aveiros have different levels of severity, and the Rambam says that there are 8. Okay, and you could tell how bad an aveirah is, generally speaking, by the punishment. So the worst aveiros are the ones that are liable for stoning. Then below that is sreifa, which is death by esophageal incineration, okay, burning of the throat. Third is the ones that are chayav for hereg, decapitation. Fourth is for chenek, death by strangulation. Fifth is kares. Sixth is misa b'dei shemaim, death at the hands of heaven. 7 is malchus, is whiplashes mita oraisa. And then the 8th is the ones that we don't administer malchus, which when we have rabbinic whiplashes, then we would do that. There are several exceptions because sometimes you get off on a technicality, like lashon hara is very bad, but halachically lashon hara is not a bodily action, so you can't give a punishment for that, But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that there are aveiros that are very severe, but people like don't take them seriously. And same thing with mitzvos. There are mitzvos that are huge mitzvos that people like overlook, or like treat, with disregard. That could be because of societal quirks, or it could just be because of, like the Rav says, like certain halachos have bad mazel, like people just like don't treat them, don't know about them. Okay, so I think this is like let's call this societally subjective. Okay, so do you have an intuition? I think these are the only 3. Maybe there's more, but these are the 3 I came up with. You have any intuition about what our Mishnah is talking about here, or what it might not be talking about out of these 3?
I think the first.
Okay, yeah, I also think the first. Why do you think the first?
Maybe because it's like talking about running, or not like running, so I get the impression that it's about like being easy to do, or like and dragging. It's kind of implying some sort of difficulty with trying.
Okay, I hear that. Yeah. Ayala?
I was gonna say not the second, because if we're going with the premise that it's geared towards Hasidim
Yeah.
in training, then I don't think that they would think that, like, based off what people think you should do it or not.
Okay, that's a good inference. Okay, good. So I think the first is most likely. I don't think it's the third. And maybe call me like, first of all, I think it would just be weird that according to this division, like all mitzvos aseh, all 246 of them, other than the last 2, end up being like light mitzvos, and then Mila and Korban Pesach are the stringent ones. I just don't think that like that this is talking about that. Okay, so let's assume for the purposes of our discussion that we're talking about answer number 1. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, rather than us trying to answer all these questions on our own, I would like to learn the Rabbeinu Yonah and Meiri. Okay, and so we'll focus on learning what they say. Okay, so let's do this. I translated this into English. I'm just going to read it in English. I think that's the best use of our time here. We've already explained the reason for this in the 2nd chapter, okay, because you don't know the reward distribution for mitzvos, and now Ben Azai adds another reason. So I did not go back and reread what Rabbeinu Yonah said on chapter 2, but presumably this is a separate idea. Okay, he said, run to a light mitzvah and flee from an aveirah, for one mitzvah drags along another. I'm going to read this in Hebrew and in English. I can't help but do that. Mikoach hateva this is a bad version. Huzeh. Mikoach hateva huzeh. This occurs naturally. Okay. Ki ba'asos adam mitzvah katana pamachas. For when a person does a small mitzvah once, hu miskarev el Hashem. He draws close to Hashem. umargil es rucho la'avodaso, and he habituates his spirit to his service. Now, I translated spirit here in Rabbeinu Yonah as personality or psyche, because that's how Rabbeinu Yonah uses it throughout Mishlei. And I don't know if he says it in Avos, but he says it a lot in Mishlei. So ruach is like your emotions. Okay. He habituates his spirit to God's service. V'nakel beinav lasos mitzvah acheres, and it becomes easy for him to do another mitzvah. Sheyesh ba toreach keneged harishon o yoser me'at. It becomes easy for him to do another mitzvah which involves as much effort as the first or a little more. Ki mipnei shekvar hurgol tivol lemelech mitzvah, because he has already accustomed his personality to the work of the mitzvah. V'chi yaseh shtayim, and once he does two mitzvos, l'shlishi af ki tieh alav l'toreach harbe min harishonos yaseh me'era. He will do the third quickly, even if it involves more effort than the first two. Ki kvar hergil sholet alav harbe, for he is already influenced greatly by habit. Ad ki yishlot alav ad ma'od, to the point where it will ultimately dominate him entirely. V'yaseh kol mitzvos kulan, and he'll do all the mitzvos. Okay, we're going to read the next paragraph in a second, but when I first read this, when I was preparing with the chavrusa today, then I said, oh, this doesn't sound like it's unique to mitzvos. This sounds like atomic habits or like tiny habits. This sounds like just habits in general. And the analogy I used in my chavrusa is I said, it's just like fishing. Like the first time you go fishing, then like you don't know what you're doing, and like it's very hard to like set everything up, and you don't know how to cast. But then the more you do it, the easier it is, But as we go on, you'll see that I don't think Rabbeinu Yonah holds that this is like fishing. Okay, so we're going to read the next. We're not going to read the whole Rabbeinu. We're going to read the next clause just so we can get the dragging thing clear. And an Aveirah drags along another Aveirah. This too is based on nature. Once he gamze minatawa. This is also natural. Say this is also too is natural. Achar sha'asa Aveirah achas v'nis rachek me'avodas Hashem Yisrael. Once he does a single Aveirah and distances himself from Hashem, blessed is he. Kitavo lide Aveirah acheres. Then when he encounters another Aveirah, af ki ein hayetzer misave elaha kivarishona, even though his yetzer doesn't desire it as it did with the first one, ya'asena, he will do it. Ki rucho alul el hayetzer v'tokef alav, for his spirit is inclined towards his yetzer. I'm not happy with this translation. Alul el hayetzer. I struggled with this when I was translating it earlier.
Gravitated, maybe?
Gravitated that's actually very good. His spirit gravitates towards his yetzer, v'tokef alav, and I think this means his yetzer overpowers it, has power over it. V'im ein taiva gedola b'davar hahu, and even though there's no great desire for this particular Aveirah, af yaseh kol aveiros, he can even do all the aveiros. Ki tivo murgo lasos kol to'avas Hashem asher saneh, for his nature is accustomed to do every abomination that Hashem hates. Okay, so let's stop here and analyze. Okay, so what is he? So he's obviously trying to answer the question of what does it mean mitzvah goreres mitzvah and Aveirah goreres. Oh, sorry, I forgot the biggest question. Not the biggest question, but the most perplexing question. Okay, I forgot this. Okay, there's a big problem. Okay, no, you know what? I'll do this before we get. It's a problem on the next clause. Okay, so we'll finish this, then we'll go back and we'll see the biggest problem. Okay, but here he's clearly answering the question of mitzvah goreres mitzvah and Aveirah goreres Aveirah, and he's saying that is why you should run to a light mitzvah like a strict mitzvah. So what is he saying in your own words?
Like once you trigger the Yetzer Hara, it like opens the door for anything possible to happen.
Okay, so I think this is a lot easier to understand for the Aveirah thing, right? And I think there are a lot of statements because all of that, like, and a lot of intuitive statements that correspond with this. So for the Aveirah side, he's saying that once you give in to your Yetzer, then you're more inclined to do other aveiros, even ones that you don't desire, okay, because you're now in the grips of habit and your Yetzer Hara.
I would say even if it's okay, aka domino effect.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect. Okay.
Mind scrolling down for the translation of the other one?
For the scrolling up or scrolling down? Up, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Ayala, what do you want to say?
just to add on to that point, like I feel like specifically desire is like when desire comes from like a possibility of something, and then like once that possibility is in your mind, then you kind of just desire it. So I feel like once you do something once, then it becomes a possibility in your mind, and you kind of can't get rid of that.
Okay, good. So that actually corresponds with the statement of Chazal that I was thinking of, which I should look up. Let me just see if I remember the lashon. Okay, I can only paraphrase it. I'm not going to spend time looking it up. That says, once you do an Aveirah, it becomes mutter to you. And then Chazal say mutter, and it says no, it becomes like it's mutter, right? Because you've now like broken the taboo, you know. A good example of this, by the way, I was I was working with my Harusa on this, and so he gave an example and I gave an example. The example he gave is, let's say you're struggling with kashrus. Okay, let's say, I don't know, you're a Baal Tshuva, or like you're having a, your attachment to halacha is not so strong. So, but you keep kosher. Okay, then let's say like one day you're walking by a restaurant and you smell like this amazing non-kosher food, and you give into the desire to eat that non-kosher food, and you're like, okay, I'm just eating because this food is so good. Okay, so what ends up happening, fast forward, is you end up justifying eating non-kosher fruit even when you don't have an overwhelming desire, like it opens up the whole category, actually, I'm going to reserve my example for something else later on. So I think this is definitely a part of it. Okay. And I think there are lots of factors here, meaning one factor is cognitive dissonance, that like, people don't like to view themselves as doing bad or like failing. So once they do an Aveirah, there's part of you that wants you to just say like, I'm just going to give up on the whole thing, like, or on this whole category, or like, I can't keep this mitzvah at all, because, so that's one reason why you gravitate towards that. Another reason is because people, maybe this is related, but people like labeling, like either I'm good or I'm bad, or like I keep this mitzvah or I don't keep this mitzvah. That's why, talking about the Shomer Negia thing, that's why I think it's such a destructive thing that people, invented the phrase Shomer Negia as if it's an option or a status. Like, I always have to say this for every high schooler, but like, there's no such thing as like, oh, I am a shomer not eating pork. No, it's like the act of eating pork is a ma'aseh aveiros. It's an act of doing an aveiros. And like, if you eat pork twice, you've done 2 aveiros. And if you eat it all the time, then like you're doing it all the time, So like, there's no like status of being shomer negia, but because people like talk about it that way, then they can say, well, I am not a person who is shomer negia, and so like it makes it easy to just like get rid of the whole category. So people think categorically. Another thing is just like taiva, like when you give into desires, then your desires will take over, and like your ability to do impulse control will be less. So even if you don't have as great of a desire, you just become less adept at controlling yourself. Okay. So like there's many reasons for this. Okay. But I think the more difficult one is the mitzvah one. Okay. So what does he mean when he says he draws close to Hashem and habituates his spirit to his service? Then it becomes easy for him to do another mitzvah. So again, I think when I first read this, I thought it was just, it's like any habit. Like once you make it a routine, then it's easier to do. But he puts so much emphasis on God's service and distancing yourself from God, right? Drawing close to Hashem and distancing yourself from Hashem, that it seems like Rabbeinu Yonah is tying this to your relationship with Hashem, Yeah, Lauren?
Could it be like maybe the flip side of what we're saying for the Aveirah? Like, just like you might not view yourself as like the person, you could view yourself as a person that doesn't keep this mitzvah. Like, oh, I'm not that type of Jew that, learns every morning, but once you do it once and then you keep going, then you realize like, oh wait, maybe I can be that. And sometimes your psychology could prevent you from, for whatever reason, from doing that based on maybe how you view yourself.
Okay, good. So I was going to give a similar answer. My answer, I'm sure you quote many sources. I want to quote my favorite line in all of Slichos. Okay, and this is Slichos from Erev Rosh Hashanah, and it is much better in Hebrew than in English. Okay, Oved Shnei Adonim Kafi Shanav Asos Liyotzro Uliyitzro Kirtzonav the tov hidabek leborao kol zmanav, the eved chofshi me'adonav. Man who serves two masters throughout his years, doing for his maker or for his inclination, according to his own will. It is better for him to cling to his creator all his days and to be a servant free from his evil master. Okay, so the idea here is like man is a servant. Okay, and you could either be a servant to God or you could be a servant to your yetzer, you know. And I don't know enough about the human psyche to like give a whole theory and explanation for this whole thing, but like I think that this is what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying. Like either you are going to subordinate yourself to something, and either you're subordinating yourself to God, which what that really means is you're subordinating yourself to the influence of your Yetzer HaTov, of your mind that tells you that God is the creator and that he's the source of all good, and that by obeying his will then you'll receive good, or you are a servant to the master of your Yetzer, you know, and its dictates, you know. That's the other like you know, my favorite other not proof of this, but like reference to this is in Bekius, and you have, you know, there's two types of tov. Okay, there's the tov of Bekius, of V'yar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hine tov ma'od. God saw everything that he created, and behold, it was very good. Okay, and then there's the tov of the Nachash. Okay, and remember, the Nachash is, according to many Mefarshim, the Nachash is a mashal for the Yetzer Hara, right? So the Nachash was more cunning than all the beasts of the field. Asher asa Hashem Elokim v'yomer el Yisha af ki amar Elokim lo sochlu mikol etz hagan. Did God really tell you not to eat from any tree of the garden? V'tomer ha'isha el hanachash mipri etz hagan nochel. Umipri ha'etz asher b'soch hagan amar Elokim lo sochlu mimenu v'lo sigu ubo pentemusun. So the woman says, from the tree of the fruit of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, God said, don't eat from it and don't touch it lest you die. And the Nachash said to the woman, lo most temusun, you will certainly not die. Ki yodea Elohim, ki biyom achalcha mimenu v'nifkuchu einechem v'yisim kelohim yodei tov v'ra. For God knows that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowers of good and evil. Then vatera ha'isha ki tov ha'etz l'machal v'chisavahu la'inayim v'nechman ha'etz l'haskil. And then the woman saw that the tree was good for eating and it was desirable for the eyes and endearing to become intelligent, however you want to translate that. And then she took from its fruit and ate, and she gave it to her husband. So there's two goods. There's the good of God, of Ma'aseh Bereishis, which is recognized by your mind, and then there's the good that the Nachash tells you that really is like you're going to be God. You know, you are going to be God. So you're either serving like, you know, the true God, or you're serving like the inner part of you that wants to be God, you know, which is the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so again, I'm not going into like proving that this is the case or explaining the whole dynamics of it, but I think that that's the language that the Rabbeinu Yonah is talking in, that you're either serving God or you're serving your Yetzer, and that's, you know, all the habit stuff is true, but the essence is in terms of how you're going to relate to God. Now, I think we're going to increase our understanding of that when we do the Meiri. Okay, but any questions on this so far? Okay, so then let's go to the other Rabbeinu Yonah. But before we do, we have to do the question we forgot. What is the problem with the notion? Okay, and everyone can answer this except for Charlotte. Okay, well, and Charlotte can answer this, but this is the opposite of Charlotte's. Charlotte said this is obvious. The reward of the mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward of an Aveirah is an Aveirah. Okay, but I think there's a huge problem with this statement. What's the problem with it?
It's guaranteeing. No, you know what? I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I don't know.
Okay, so the problem with it is I don't know if circular is the right word, but it suggests an infinite regression. Okay, so how can he say that a reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah? Okay, doesn't this lead to an infinite regression? Like, in other words, what am I going to get if I do this? That's what you ask God. And he says, oh, I'll give you, you can do a mitzvah. Well, what am I going to get if I do that? Oh, I'll give you another mitzvah. Well, what about that? Another mitzvah. Another, you know, my Chabrusa suggested, he said, it'd be like if I told you let's say you did a job for me, okay? And I said, and then you said, well, what are you going to pay me? I said, oh, Schneeweiss dollars. It's this currency that I have, okay? And you said, oh, well, what can I do with the Schneeweiss dollars? And I tell you, oh, you can invest it in the Schneeweiss market. And you say, well, what am I going to get when you do that? Oh, you can make more Schneeweiss dollars. And then you say, well, what can I do with the Schneeweiss dollars? Oh, you can make a lot more Schneeweiss dollars, right? It's an insane idea, right? The whole point of a reward is like you get something that is good in and of itself, okay? If each thing is a means to something else, then it's not a reward. And same thing for the punishment, you know? So that's a big problem. Is that clear? And that's why I'm saying it's not obvious. I think it's like the opposite of obvious. It's obviously, needs an explanation. Okay, so Rabbeinu Yonah thankfully answers that. Okay, he says, Sheskar mitzvah, the explanation, Zehu tam, no, I just read that. No. Okay, yeah. Zehu tam achar chutz min hateva. This explanation is a different reason outside of nature. So mitzvah Goreres mitzvah, he's saying is a natural phenomenon. Okay, that naturally when you give into your yetzer, you're going to give into it more, and naturally when you serve God, you're going to be more inclined to serve God. Okay, but now this is supernatural, or at least not natural. V'chein ratza lomar, and it means to say, Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo nasan biyad ha'adam harava tov ach ha'bechir levad. Okay, it means that God did not create man as good or evil. I know it says God didn't give to man good or evil, but the footnote guy says he didn't create man as good or evil. I think that makes sense. But only with free will alone. Kamosha Nemar, as it says, says you should choose life, which means you could choose. If after he has chosen one path, if he walks on the good path, and Hashem is with him, mitzvah achas Messiah also lasos mitzvah acheros. I don't know if it should be Messiah also. Then it or God will help him do another mitzvah. Because by himself he does not have the ability to do good. Amar, regarding this, he said, Sheskar mitzvah. The reward of mitzvah is mitzvah. Not God forbid. This does not mean God forbid that this is its reward. Okay, that's referring to the infinite regression thing. If that were the case, then what would the reward be? You wouldn't have any reward. It would just be, schar all the way, mitzvahs all the way down. Then he says, "Velochein hadavar." That's not the case. Ki schara kayim hu l'olam haba. Your reward is in olam haba. Don't worry. Ella, meaning you get real reward in olam haba. So what does this mean? Ella sharat lomar shepri mitzvah. It means that the beneficial outcome of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. The ochel peruseha ba'olam hazeh shemasayas lo oso lasos mitzvos acheros. That mitzvos will be rewarded in this world by helping you do other mitzvos. V'nimtza hakerem misrabe v'kaim lolam haba. And it turns out that his the principal reward will increase and will be preserved for him in olam haba. V'zeh shneimar amru tzadik ki tov ki prima alalehim yochelu. That's why it says in Yeshayahu, tell each righteous man that it is good, for they shall eat the fruit of their deeds. Okay, now this is basically giving the whole philosophy of reward and punishment. Okay, the whole philosophy of the brachos and klalos in the Torah. All right. I actually think it's important for me to read this. I just want to see if I have a translation of it. If I do, then I will read it, and if not, then I will just Microsoft Edge. Always popping up when I want to just search. Mishnah, Torah, translation. I just want to see if I have a translation of this already. So this is in Hilchos Tשובה, chapter 8, chapter 9, where the Rambam tells us how reward and punishment works, how the brachos and klalos work. So in chapter 8, he tells us that the ultimate reward is olam haba, and the ultimate punishment is being cut off from olam haba. And then, okay, here we go. So the Rambam says as follows. I didn't translate the first halacha. Okay, I'm not going to translate it. The Holy One, blessed is he, gave us this Torah, which is a tree of life. Anyone who does everything written in it and knows it with a complete and correct knowledge will merit through it the world to come. He will merit according to the greatness of his actions and the greatness of his wisdom. We are promised in the Torah that if we keep it with joy and good spirit and continually contemplate its wisdom, he will remove from us all of the things which prevent us from keeping Torah, such as sickness, war, famine, etc., and he will bestow upon us all the good things which strengthen our ability to keep the Torah, such as satiety and wealth, so that we will not occupy all our days with our bodily needs, but instead we will sit free to learn wisdom and to do the mitzvah, in order that we will merit the life in the world to come. Similarly, he says in the Torah, after promising us the goods of this world, and it shall be justice for you. Okay, so in other words, the real reward is olam haba. Okay, but the way to get olam haba is to do Torah and mitzvos here, and the brachos in this world is if we keep Torah and mitzvos here, God will make it easier for us to do Torah and mitzvos without any impediments. So he'll give us the ability to increase our reward in olam haba. Okay, and that's what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, is that the reward in this world for mitzvah is the ability to do more mitzvos. The real reward is in olam haba, but the reward for doing in this world is for doing mitzvos. The reward in this world for doing mitzvos is having the ability to do more mitzvos to increase your chelek in olam haba. Yeah, Ayala?
So I guess my question is, I mean, and then I have like a few different follow-ups, but is why aren't the mitzvos just intrinsically like does your word specifically mean hashkafically? Hashkafically. Or can it just be like the mitzvos themselves are intrinsically beneficial, or would we not call that a reward?
Okay, so he seems to be saying that whatever this is not due to nature, right? But whether it is, it depends on how you read this line, that ki bifnei atzmo ein lo yecholes gam lahetiv, that by himself, on his own, he doesn't have the ability to do good. Okay, so I don't know if that's just a general acknowledgement that there are many factors outside of our control, and the only thing you can really do is have bechira, but you have no way of saying that the mitzvah that you intend to do is going to actually be able to play out, and only God is like can control that. So that would be like a more like hashgacha klalis way of looking at it, and then a more hashgacha pratis way is that God will like arrange for you to do more mitzvahs. Okay. I think that the Meiri is going to answer your question better than the Rabbeinu Yonah will. So I'm going to wait till we get to the Meiri, and then I think for the purposes of the idea, if we walk away with the Meiri is going to be better. Okay. But I think Rabbeinu Yonah is hard to tell. Okay. Okay. So then he says for the Aveirah part. Okay, we'll go back to the Rambam in a second. And the reward for an Aveirah is an Aveirah. If he chose the path of if he chose the death and the evil, and he did a single Aveirah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu distances himself from him, leaves him, and gives him over into the hands of his evil nature. This is the outcome that results from the Aveirah, that they leave him. Oh, you know what? I did not finish translating this. In fact, I didn't translate most of it. Okay, so I have to get to that. This is the outcome that results from the Aveirah, that they leave him to do another, and he will not have the ability to deviate from that path. For a man's way does not belong to him once he has already chosen the path for himself. This is the meaning of that which is said, woe to the wicked person who does evil, for the recompense of his hands will be dealt to him. Okay, v'alzeh amru chazal. Oh, no. Hold on. I definitely... Oh, man. I definitely translated this, but I think I deleted it. That's frustrating. Let me just check my other document. Oops, not that document. No. Okay, I deleted it. Okay. So I guess I have to just translate. Okay, I'm not going to type it. Okay, so I think we've all heard, or many of us have heard the first part of this. One who comes to be purified is helped. Okay, but then it says one who comes to make himself impure, they open for him. Okay, so what does that mean? Klomar she'im ba latame. If he comes to make himself tame, which again, tame doesn't mean halachically tame, it means like to do bad stuff. Ein masayin oso. They don't help him. V'psachim harbe yeshlo likanes behen ulahara. Many openings will will open up for him him to be able to do evil. Because he will be left to do what is upright in his own eyes. Chazal give a mashal. L'adam shalakach es hanafat kisheba omer lo medod la'atzmecha. Oh, I know why I okay. I see. I know I translated this because I had to look it up, and I think that's why I stopped. So maybe I didn't maybe I just translated this next part. Yuma 38b. I didn't look this up yet. Sorry about that. Yuma 38b. Yuma 38b. Nafat. Okay, so it says, I'm just going to read it in English. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, no righteous person departs from this world until another comparable righteous person. No, that's Niftar. Okay, here we go. Rish Lakish said, what is the meaning of that which is written? If it concerns the scorners, he scorns them, but to the humble he gives grace. That's Mishlei. Im laletim hu yalit ulo anavim yitain chen. If one comes to impurify, they open before him the opportunity to exercise his free will and to do as he pleases. Okay, so that's how he's translated. I'm just going to read this in Aramaic. Balatame poschenlo. One who comes to become tame, they open for him. Balatai or Messiah noso. Okay. Tana deve Rabbi Yishmael. It was taught by the house of Rabbi Yishmael. Mashal Adam Shaya Mocher Nafat V'afar Simon. Oh, it's neft. Okay, so so if a person was selling naphtha, which is stinky, and balsam, which is pleasant. Hold on. What did it just say? Oh, it could be compared to a guy who's selling both those things. Baal limdod nafat. If someone comes to measure and purchase naphta, omer lo, then the merchant says, madod atal latmecha. Measure it yourself. Okay. Baal limdod afarsimon. If it comes to measure afarsimon, balsam, omer lo, he says, hamtain li ad she'emdod imacha. Wait for me until I measure with you, kadeshinis basim ani va'ata, so that you and I can both smell fragrant. Okay. So in other words, like, the mashal is like you're left to your own devices if you want to do bad and make yourself stinky. Okay. Let's finish this here. Yeah. Kain harashayim achar shebacharu b'derech hara. After, so too is the Rishayim. After they choose the bad path, menichin osan lasos cheftam rutzonim. They're left to do what they want. Ki chas v'shalom in hashemayim lo yisayu l'shum adam ra. God forbid that heaven should help an evil person. But the tzaddikim who choose a good path, they are assisted. Mashal adam shalaka chafarsimon halach limdo. Okay, then it quotes the other part of that that mashal. Okay, so I'm going to read the Rambam just to supplement this. The Rambam says, it was also made known to us in the Torah that if we abandon the Torah with our minds and involve ourselves in pursuits which are a waste of time, as it is stated, and Yeshurun became fat and kicked, the true judge will remove from those who abandon the Torah all of the goods in this world, which strengthen their ability to rebel, and he will bring upon them all of the bad things which prevent us from acquiring existence in the world to come, so that they perish in their wickedness. This is what is stated in the Torah: you will serve your enemies whom Hashem will send you, because you do not serve Hashem your God with glad heart amidst abundance. Therefore, the explanation of the blessings and curses is as follows. If you worship Hashem with joy and keep his derech, he will bestow all these blessings upon you, and he will distance the curses so that you can be free to become wise in Torah and occupy yourselves in it, so that you can merit the world to come and partake of a world that is entirely good and achieve length of days that are forever long. Consequently, you will merit both worlds, a good life in this world, which brings you to the world to come. For if one does not acquire chachma and good deeds here, then he will have nothing by which he merits in the world to come, as it is stated. For there's no deed, account, knowledge, no wisdom in the grave. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I thought he also summarized the bad. Let me just see if he says that. And if not, then we'll go back to Rabbeinu Yonah. No. Yeah, and if we abandon Hashem, and we steep ourselves in food and drink and lechery and other things like that, maybe aleichem kol haklalos elu, then God will bring all these bad things, and meisir kol habrachos, and he'll remove all the good things. So to the point where we spend all of our days, we finish out our days in anxiety and fear. And we don't have a free mind and a healthy, intact body to do the mitzvos, so that we perish from olam haba. And consequently, we will have caused ourselves to lose both worlds. Because when a person is preoccupied in this world, in sickness and in war and in famine, he will not be involved in chachmos and mitzvos, which you get olam haba through. So in other words, the upshot is, if you choose the good derech, so then God will help you by giving you more opportunities to do mitzvos, to increase your reward. Okay, Ayala's question is how, okay, which we'll get to with Meiri. But if you do an Aveirah, so you will just be left to your own devices, and you're going to end up just like becoming involved in more aveiros, and God will not help you. Okay, so that's called Aveirah. Okay, so I think our best course of action is, let's read the Meiri, which is very short. It's basically 2 paragraphs. And then we'll put together a complete understanding based on a fusion of both of them. So the Meiri says, Amar shihe rat mitzvah kala kavachamura v'shihe borech ben Aveirah klomar shetei borech gam kein min hakala kavurichasa min hakamura. So that's what I said at the beginning of shiur, that you should flee from a light transgression just like you flee from a severe one. So he says it's the same distinction there. Shemitzvah Goreres mitzvah klomar. So this is going to answer your question, Ayala. Hamitzvah kala taviacha lechamura hemenu. A light mitzvah will bring you to a more severe one, or a heavier one. Same thing with an Aveirah. This is the meaning of one mitzvah is the reward for a mitzvah. Meaning another mitzvah will come from it. Same thing with Aveirah, that another Aveirah will come from it. Im mitzad gemul ve'onesh, whether by reward and punishment. Im mitzad hahergel, or by habit. Im lifamim b'derech mikre, ve'efshar, or by way of happenstance and possibility. Shahanimshechas mizo hakala tiye chamura, that namely that this light thing that you're doing will lead to a more strict one. Kamosha tomar sheba lignov umatzo bal habayis v'haganav yatris kenegdo v'yakum alav yargehu. For example, a guy goes to steal something, like breaks into someone's house to steal something, and he's found by the homeowner, and the thief attempts to defend himself against the homeowner, and then he rises up and kills him. Okay, so that guy went into the house just to steal, but ended up killing somebody. Okay, so to answer Ayala's question, I think he gives all the possibilities, right? Either this is hashgacha, reward and punishment from Hashem, okay, or it's habit, which means that you're perfecting yourself and you're making yourself more prone to doing mitzvos, like the Rabbeinu Yonah was saying, or it's happenstance. Now, he uses the word mikra, which means chance, okay? But I don't think he means chance like I, went to pick up my lulav, and when I put it down, it scratched off a scratch-off ticket, and I won the lottery, and I was able to buy more money to give it tzedakah, So what do you think he means from this example here? Like, it's one example he gives, and it's just for Aveirah, but what exactly does he mean by it'll come about through derech mikra ve'efshar? Or maybe it's mikra, just mikra, not efshar. Efshar, I think, is part of the second sentence. Yeah, Lauren?
Maybe it has to do with the environment. Like in an environment of mitzvos, then you're often going to find other mitzvos. It's mikra in the sense that it's the environment is conducive towards other types of mitzvos.
Okay, good. So I agree with you. I think what he means is that if you do a mitzvah, you are creating circumstances which are going to create more chances for encountering mitzvos. So an example that I'd like to give is, there are many times when I don't want to go to shul, okay? And when I manage to convince myself to go to shul, I'll go there. And let's say I will end up getting into a conversation with someone about what they're learning. And then that conversation will spark an idea, and that idea will lead to a whole shiur, and that shiur will lead to a whole life-changing insight for myself and whoever is in the shiur, So how did that work? Well, shul is a place where there are people who are daveners, and they're places where people talk Torah. And I'm putting myself in an environment where it's more conducive to that kind of thing, So I'm going to encounter more opportunities for mitzvah by doing that, And it's not just an environment like a building. If you do an action of giving tzedakah, you're going to encounter a poor person, and then maybe that'll make you aware of like another need that you weren't aware of before, and that'll lead you to do more tzedakah, And same thing with aveiros, I think his example is very good, but I'm going to give the example I always give, which is, in the show Breaking Bad. Then you have this guy, Walter White, who gets involved in making drugs for a good purpose because he's going to die and he wants to provide for his family. So he doesn't really care, like if he gets, even if he gets arrested because he's going to die. But then what ends up happening is his cancer goes into remission and he gets further and further. Making the drugs means that he has to like sell them. And once he's selling them, he's interacting with drug dealers. And once he's interacting with drug dealers, he has to commit crimes. And and it just like descends to a whole thing of doing lots and lots of aveiros, So I think that's what he means. So that's the Meiri's first interpretation. And then he gives a second one, which is it's not contrary to the first one, but it's a different interpretation of reward. Alternatively, one can explain the reward in this context to be a reference to Pirya. He used the word Pirya, which literally means its fruit, but I'm translating it as its beneficial outcome. She'ikar ha-mitzvah upirya hu hamuvan mimena. The essential reward for a mitzvah and its beneficial outcome is the hamuvan mimena, that which you understand from it, the insight that comes from it. Belief amin, and sometimes yechashev b'mitzvah achas shehi kala. It will be thought of in regards to a certain mitzvah that it is light, shemina muvan mimenu, but from what you understand from it, yisharu rushumos hachakukos b'seichel pinos gedolos torios o unios. But that mitzvah can leave an impression engraved on your intellect with fundamental ideas in Torah and philosophy. Like reading the Shema, very easy mitzvah, but it has emunas hayichud, a conviction in God's oneness. Or mitzvahs Pesach, which is emunas ha'alokus v'shino ha'tavayim ha'nishachim achar emunas chidush ha'olam, which leads to belief in the divinity and miracles involving changes in nature and belief in the creation of the universe. Okay, so that's a different idea, which is that you can get insights from mitzvos that are like life-changing and that are like the real reward. And so he's saying that like the reward of the mitzvah. So this is the closest thing to saying like what I was saying earlier, that the mitzvah is its own reward, basically, that the good is in the mitzvah itself. Okay. So in other words, the Meiri's first interpretation is one mitzvah leads you to do another mitzvah, and that's your reward. And then the second one is no, the mitzvah is its own reward. And that's why it uses this weird like circular thing, because we said the problem with the infinite recursion is it has to culminate in some intrinsic good at some point. And this answer is essentially saying, yeah, mitzvahs are their own good. Yeah, Ayala?
Is this in second interpretation like an alternative interpretation to Meiri's first answer? Or can you say both together?
You can say both together. He introduces it as yish lefarish, because I think he's interpreting the word schar differently. The first one is schar. It's funny, he doesn't. Oh yeah, schar is nimshach mimena, is that which results from it. Here he's learning schar as like its fruit, like the main thing that it produces. But they can go together. Yeah, Lauren?
Is the Meiri's second answer like the idea that we've said before that like mitzvah lead to perfection, like the ideas behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, this is in fact, if you ever need someone, like it's a very, it's an idea that like is a hard sell to people who think that, who have like imaginary ideas of reward, like you get like, bricks for the base of Mikdash and Shemayim, like that kind of thing. It's a difficult sell to tell them that the real reward for a mitzvah is the insights you get from it. And this Meiri is like one of the most explicit ones who says that, because that's like literally what he says, so it's a good Meiri to have in your back pocket. Okay, so let's just summarize our understanding according to I know Meiri and Rabbeinu Yonah are different, but let's just see which of our questions we answered. Okay, so what does it mean to run and to run away? So none of them really answered that, but I think it just means, what do you think it means? I don't think it's like that difficult.
Seek out or avoid.
Yeah, just make a concerted effort to like seek this out, like make it a priority. Don't just happen upon it, chase after it, and don't just like try to avoid it. No, run for your life, Okay, what's the Havamina? So I think these are all valid Havaminas, that I think that there are, a person might think that you have to prioritize severe mitzvos more than light mitzvos. And that would be missing out on the point that, first of all, Rabbeinu Yonah would say, every mitzvah you do is training you to serve God, okay? Even the light mitzvahs do that. And every mitzvah that you do, God will create other opportunities for you to do other mitzvahs in the way that the Meiri said, either by reward and punishment or by habit or by circumstance, So, and you could have a very light mitzvah that like ends up leading you to a huge, like a huge thing. I mean, I'll give you an example of this. I'm just thinking about this now. Maybe because we had the Lichter Simcha, today that Isaiah and Tamar's, had their son's bris. So the way that I got to Shelhevet as a teacher was that I think Tamar was in 9th grade and the school was in its 2nd year. And Joey Lichter, the Lichters had me over for a Shabbos meal, and Joey had said, I hear there's an opening at Shelhevet, do you want to like pursue that as a job? And this was my first year that I was going to be teaching full time. So I said, sure. And the rest is history, So, but where did this start? This started with Lichters doing hachnasas orchim in their house. There are families that like have guys from yeshiva over like every Shabbos, and they're doing a mitzvah and it's a cost, right? But like as a result of that, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't really know the Lichters because the only real place I interacted with them was at their Shabbos tables. But going to their Shabbos tables year after year, we developed a relationship, and then this opportunity comes along, derech mikra, right? And then as a result of that, I get this job in Shelhevet, and then I find like this amazing school and teach all these students and happily, well, not happily ever after for Shelhevet, okay, but happily ever after in terms of learning Torah, So that was a light mitzvah of Haknasas Orchim compared to like Talmud Torah or something like that, but it led to Talmud Torah. Is the point I'm trying to make. Okay. And yeah, I think that there's another thing also is like people don't run to mitzvos, especially if they're hard or especially if they're like trivial, Okay, fine. What's the meaning of light and severe mitzvos in this context? They don't really answer it, but we answered it. I think it has to do with subjective perception or ease. Why doesn't it differentiate between light and severe for Aveirah, only for mitzvah? Excuse me. So I think it actually does. And I think the Meiri acknowledges that, and I think it makes sense. And I think the example he gave with the thief is really good, is that, yeah, murder is way worse than stealing. But if you steal, you could one day find yourself in a place where you commit murder. Like, that just happens, a big area of this is in terms of the sexual, like it starts off with like flirting, and then it could easily lead to an affair, so like, there's like, a lot of these things have a chain reaction. Yeah, Lauren?
Sorry, I just want to add on maybe to like the light and severe, like talking about the mitzvos, because now that you say the Orchim, like I'm wondering if like maybe also it's like pointing out that, and the Orchim is an example that it's like you're not commanded to do, but it's a good thing to do, and so like you realize like there's no chiyuv for it. So I'm wondering if it's like the Mishnah is saying like run after mitzvos, like all mitzvos, like even if you're not obligated in it.
Okay.
But think about just any mitzvah that.
Okay, so that's a great point. And Bli Netter next week when we do the Rambam, then I think the Rambam is going to focus on that. So I'm going to leave my thoughts on that for when we do the Rambam. But that's a good thought. Okay, 5. What does it mean that a mitzvah drags a mitzvah and Aveirah drags an Aveirah? So that is according to Rabbeinu Yonah. There's habit, and then there's also God helping you, and then according to the Meiri, there's derech mikra. How do these 3 clauses relate to each other? So according to Rabbeinu Yonah, it's 2 different explanations, 2 different reasons why you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah. And according to the Meiri, how's the Meiri learning it? He seems to be saying that it's synonymous, right? He's saying for the one mitzvah drags another. In other words, a light mitzvah will bring you to a more severe one, and likewise with the transgression. This is the meaning of the reward for a mitzvah as a mitzvah. In other words, a mitzvah will be drawn after it. Like, so he's saying it's like he's just explaining himself, and just in different ways. Okay, so we answered according to both of those. what is the meaning of schar here? So Meiri gave two interpretations. One is that which follows from it, and the other is its essential benefit. Okay, and the Rabbeinu Yonah also used the word pri. How can you say that the reward for mitzvah is a mitzvah? Doesn't this lead to infinite regression? So both of them answer this in different ways. And the Rabbeinu Yonah says this is not the real reward for the mitzvah. That's in Olam Haba. But the reward in this world is the opportunity to get more reward in Olam Haba by doing more mitzvos. And the Meiri says that that the Meiri didn't really comment on this question. Practically speaking, how does this reward come about? So we answered that. And who's the audience of this mishnah? So I think it's clear the audience of this mishnah is everybody, right? And I think for different reasons. I think that let's say the average person, struggles with halacha in a certain way. I think for Hasidim, for people on a high level, then there are mitzvos that they're just not in the habit of doing because they're involved in more important things. I don't know if you saw that picture going around a couple of weeks ago, that one of the Rosh Yeshiva of Gush? It was a picture that someone took of him in the kitchen washing dishes. And basically what happened was a lot of the yeshiva bochrim got called up for reservist or for the army, and the person or the people who were supposed to wash the dishes that day weren't there. So the Rosh Yeshiva went and washed the dishes, because he was supporting the yeshiva in that way. That's a mitzvah. That's a light mitzvah but or maybe it's a heavy mitzvah if you don't like washing the dishes. But my point is that a yeshiva bocher is much more likely to do that mitzvah. A Rosh Yeshiva is probably not going to do that mitzvah, but when he saw the opportunity, he ran for it and he did it, so yeah. Okay. So next week, the plan is to do the Rambam and probably find some other exciting idea, because I think there's probably going to be a lot on this, and then we'll see where that takes us. I'm trying to think of any other announcements. Tomorrow, shiur is planned. Whether we come up with ideas remains to be seen, because I have not figured out the midrash yet. But tomorrow's part 2 of that time Jesus, Unglos resurrected Jesus through necromancy. Okay, so we'll review everything again for those who missed the first time, and we'll try to figure it out. And then next week, plan to have Pirkei Avos shiur, but no Friday shiur. Yeah, Ayala?
I like the idea that I usually have on mitzvah, Goreres mitzvah. I don't know if the Rambam will cover it next week, but I feel is something different even than we said here. Just like the drives that you can tap into, that the fact that people that Hashem created us with once we learn or do good or whatever, we want to do more of it.
Okay. Yeah, that idea also I think is when I said about the Rabbeinu Yonah, that there's many reasons why you're going to be prone to doing your yetzer is going to be wanting to do God's will more. I had that in mind, but we'll have to see if anyone says that explicitly for this. There's definitely my favorite Rambam in chapter 6 of Hilchos Tשובה, where he talks about that for Habal L'Tayr Messiah. So, but yeah, I guess we'll see. Okay, have a good night, and if I don't talk to you, then have a good Shabbos. Yeah, Lauren?
Oh, can I just ask you a question after you stop the recording, not
Yes.
about this?
Sure, I will stop the recording. Stop the recording.
Good night, everyone.